Well, here we are today for an exciting program, and so pleased to have Kyle Jolliffe here from Toronto, Canada. He'll be our presenter today. Kyle has been a regular here at our monthly club meetings, and he's never been very verbose, so this is a chance for us to hear Kyle and to enjoy being with him. Kyle is a collector and he posts wonderful postcards on Facebook 2 or 3 times a week. We've not talked about this in these days that we've been practicing so forth, but the postcards that he puts on Facebook, I guess you have to be a friend of his and then he'll admit you and then you can receive these and see these postcards also, just like I do. But like I wrote down here, it's a splash of color of the designs of the walls and the carpeting and the furniture and lighting. And I watch for them and really enjoy them, Kyle. I want you to know that. I've not said it before to you, but we're in for a treat this afternoon with Kyle explaining the background and history of the art history term Art Deco and how it relates to architectural wonders in New York City. Sit back and delight in seeing exceptional postcard views of some of the landmarks we may have seen in person or on television shows and films. Thanks, Kyle, for being with us today, and please join me in welcoming Kyle Jolliffe to this virtual program.
So New York City in the 1920s and 1930s experienced massive growth marked by the construction of soaring and majestic slender skyscrapers, the like of which the world had not seen before. Quite a few of these skyscrapers were built in the then popular streamlined Art Deco style, and numerous old postcards illustrate them. We're going to see a lot of those today. One can also find Art Deco style buildings in your hometown or home city. There's still a lot of them out there. Art Deco takes its name from the 1925 Parisian exposition Internationale des Arts Décoratifs and Industriels Modernes, where pieces in what came to be known as the quote Art Deco style were first introduced. It succeeded the ornate, curvy, and detailed Art Nouveau style and the Beaux Arts style influenced by Greek and Roman elements. The architectural elements of the latter style are buildings like the 1911 New York Public Library at 42nd Street and Fifth Avenue, and the Pennsylvania Railroad Station, also in New York City. Art Deco employed new design materials from chrome and plate glass to bakelite and luxurious finishes like exotic woods and lacquered surfaces. For buildings, a major new material was Nirosta, a nickel chrome steel alloy that permitted metal to be used on the exterior of skyscrapers, especially on the famed tower and spire of the Chrysler Building. A lot of new geometric motifs and patterns also became more common, including zigzags, chevrons, starbursts, fans, and circular designs. Quite a few New York City architects embraced the Art Deco style on various types of buildings. The best known skyscrapers, as we see in this first slide, which are in the Art Deco style, are the Empire State Building on the left-hand side, the buildings of the Rockefeller Center in the middle, and on the right-hand side, the Chrysler Building. So these ornamental forms of New York City skyscrapers of this period were also illustrated by disparate sources, from China, Japan, India, Egypt, South America. So one of the factors in the construction of Art Deco skyscrapers, as well as other skyscrapers in New York City in this time, was what was called the 1916 zoning resolution. The Equitable Light building on the left-hand side of this slide was on Broadway. It burned down in January 1912. And within 3 years, a new 38-story building, just really of immense size. At the time, it had the largest office building area in the world by floor area. It's in the middle of the screen. It's the tallest building to the left of the Trinity Church. and this is the Beaux Arts style that Art Deco triumphed over. This is the New York Public Library that I spoke of recently. What was notable about the Beaux Arts style was it had a sense of order and symmetry and to it, and also they wanted things to be grandiose. I mean, it's still a very beautiful building, but the the leading Art Deco architects really didn't like this. They found it very dull. So you can see it. You can see the interior of the building. It's old but it's still beautiful. Kind of a limestone form with Greek and Roman arches. Here's a shot of the library catalog room. So what the 1916 zoning resolution meant was that because people were quite upset after the Equitable Life building went up, it really made Broadway made Broadway below it very dark and really affected the circulation of light and air. So the city passed the zoning resolution, which basically meant that architects could build 5 stories up and then taper the buildings back. And this was really suitable for the Art Deco style with its geometric shapes. Once they started tapering back from that from the top of that 5th story podium, they could go as high as they wanted. So that 1916 zoning resolution really affected the construction of skyscrapers in New York City for the next 50 years. The card on the left-hand side was produced by an Italian printer and gives a cutaway view of 42nd Street and Lexington Avenue. So you can clearly see that podium at the bottom. Card on the right was printed by an Austrian printer named Max Jaffe using a quite high quality halftone collotype process, part of a series of maybe about 50 or 60 cards of New York City. One of the favorite series that I collect. So the card on the left was done by an artist called Pierre Trapier from Washington, D.C. There's a series of about maybe 10 or 12 cards that were done in tinted halftone lithography by the Lumitone company. What that card on the left is showing in an artistic form is one of the gargoyles that juts out from the from almost at the top of the building. Now there's a famous picture that people can go and look at as well of Margaret Bourke White, a Time Life journalist, sitting in that gargoyle. On the right-hand side is the modern photo of a couple of those gargoyles, which are really quite large, and the stainless steel top of the Chrysler Building. Chrysler Building is also noted because if you ask most New Yorkers what's the most beautiful building in the city, it's the Chrysler Building. Here's a couple cheaply produced linen views of the Chrysler Building, but it still shows how the Chrysler Building really majestically towered over the surroundings. A couple real photo views. The one on the left is from the street level view. The 5-story podium was actually it's actually of interest because Chrysler used it as a car showcase, showcasing various car models that it produced. And then the card on the right is a quite nice aerial real photo of the Chrysler Building, especially showing the curvature of the top spire of the building, as well as the surrounding streets. Here's the Empire State Building, a nice real photo on the left-hand side. I think it's under construction because the mast still seems to be incomplete. The real photo card by William Frange. On the right-hand side is a nighttime view, also printed by Max Jaffe of Vienna, Austria, in that halftone collotype process. So the Empire State Building really took up a big area, and as with other hotels in New York City, their fate has been to be demolished for other more modern and bigger buildings, such as happened to the Empire State Building. And then the new Waldorf Astoria was later built on Park Avenue. And now it also has some Art Deco features as well. So here's another one of those Italian cards showing the cutaway podium. Normally you couldn't see that because the buildings on between 33rd and the building south of 33rd Street would be covered up. The card on the right shows the Fifth Avenue side, or the Fifth Avenue podium entrance, the main entrance to the lobby. The typeface of the building towards the top of the card is also notable, and there's some mural work which we can't really see, but if you're more interested, you could certainly find this card on eBay and take a closer look at it. So the exterior Art Deco design was not the only important thing. Sometimes the builders of these buildings spent heavily on the lobbies. This shows the cathedral-like main lobby of the building off Fifth Avenue. And at the end is this wonderful aluminum sculpture above a map of New York State. So this is how it looks today. Quite wonderful. Unfortunately, there aren't any colorized views, as far as I know, of this from the 1930s, but it's really a spectacular wall mural, incorporating lots of aspects of Art Deco design. It's made in aluminum. It may have gold leaf. I don't know about that, but it's just it was just a breath of real fresh air compared to the Beaux Arts style. So there's lots of fancy design using various materials in the lobbies of many Art Deco skyscrapers in New York City. Yeah, so here's a nice real photo view of what was then the top of the world, showing the observation area and the mast, which leads up to another smaller observation area on the 102nd floor. So the builders and owners of the Empire State Building wisely realized that there was a market for people wanting to go up and look at the city from the top of the building. So there's a West Lounge. There's also a tea room on the top floor. This is the West Lounge. It's from part of a series of maybe about 70 cards that were sold on the 86th floor. This is the nighttime view of the same lounge. On the left is the bird cage that we saw in the first slide. It's also of note is the furniture on the right, the sofa that the people are sitting on, plus the armchair, and also on the right the desk of maybe, I guess it's a kind of a concierge. There's kind of streamlined furniture there. And here's the tea room, part of that long series that was sold on the 86th floor. Again, the furniture is notable for its streamlined form. What I find particularly interesting about these cards from the top of the Empire State Building is that you could go there then and have your picture taken for a fee. This particular image is part of advertising material for that service. It's also notable because it's before 1947, when they had to erect a suicide barrier around the exterior of the 86th floor. In the distance, you'll see the Rockefeller Center and Central Park as well. Here's the back of that advertising material. The problem was with having photos finished while people toured the observatory was that in quite a few cases, as you'll see in some of the pictures I have, the quality of the developing, what people call the fixing the photos, didn't turn out very well. But if you had the photos mailed to your home, this is how it would come. Sent to George A. Carr, 240 Donald Street in Manchester, New Hampshire. Yes, eBay is wonderful for stuff like this. Here's a couple of newlyweds from 1951 who had their picture taken for their friends. And you can also see the suicide barrier in the background. a couple upper middle class women drinking. So I particularly like these cards for a couple reasons. There's a high quality to the photographs, and also it gives a sense of intimacy. People aren't drowned out by the scale of the city. You know, they have a real presence to them. Uh, Here's an example of when the developing of the photograph didn't turn out well. This is a group of Argentinian tourists. I bought this from a um, dealer in Argentina. Again, problems with developing. I bought this from a Toronto dealer. These, I think, are either, these may be the elevator operators. That's my guess as to who these staff persons are. And here's a family standing in front of the suicide barriers in one of the telescope stands. A real cross section of American life. The card on the left is by Charleston, South Carolina artist named Elizabeth O'Neill Verner. She was commissioned by the Rockefeller Center to do a number of cards of the Rockefeller Center. This card was created using dry point etching and then printed by the Albert Type Company, who used a collotype form of printing. The card on the right, which has a kind of a gauzy or translucent quality to it, I quite like. It's by the Lumitone Company again. Here's a similar view on the left of the similar view to the real photo one we saw, the Chrysler Building from the street level, but a real photo view looking up to the top of the Empire State Building. They tried to dock airships to the top mast, but it never really worked. There were too many, the winds were just too drafty. It just wasn't possible. It wasn't physically possible. The card on the right is a less common linen card showing the television tower that's lit up. Here's the front of a nice folder of the Rockefeller Center, which shows you all the buildings in the complex. A couple nice linen views again, showing you a frontal view of the buildings and also an aerial view showing you 5th and 6th Avenue. It was a real boon for some of the older hotels in the area because they could advertise that they were close to Radio City. The John D. Rockefeller originally planned for the Metropolitan Opera House to occupy part of the site, but that plan didn't fail, fortunately. But here's a couple linen cards white border cards that personally, thankfully, those plans didn't happen. The final result really is superb. That gives people a real sense of wonderful architecture, but doesn't overwhelm the people in the actual Rockefeller Center area, the people who are walking around, looking at various aspects of it, such as the promenade or the sunken plaza or some of the wonderful artwork that we're going to see in the next few cards. Here's the Prometheus sculpture in the sunken garden, quite large in size. Prometheus was the Greek god who gave fire to humans. In the background is the first floor of the main building at the Rockefeller Center, the RCA building. Here's a different view of that same sunken garden, gives you a better view of the RCA building in the background. This is a Lumitone card. There was a series of real photo cards produced of interior and exterior elements of the Rockefeller Center. This is one of the sculptures there by Lee Lowry, a leading American sculptor. It was done in Pyrex. It's really quite large. Here's some modern photographs of it, so you can really see just how majestic it is. The caption just below the image on the right reads, "Wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times." The art at the public art at the Rockefeller Center was really designed to celebrate the human spirit. On the southern perimeter of the Rockefeller Center is 9 Rockefeller Plaza. This card, the card on the left also gives you a good view of the Sunken Plaza as well, which many of you know is used as an ice skating rink in the winter time. On the right-hand side is the Atlas statue, Atlas holding up the world. I think that's also by Paul Manship. This is another Max Jaffe card, quite nice. This is a linen card, though I can never really decide whether it's a linen card or a litho card, showing the fountains in the promenade, which leads from Fifth Avenue up to the Sunken Garden. And of course, Rockefeller Center has an observation deck. This is a view in the 1930s, again, before suicide barriers were installed. So it was a good place to see ocean liners arriving and departing the city. Another Elizabeth O'Neill Werner dry point etching on the left-hand side, showing somebody looking south towards the Empire State Building at 34th Street. And you could also get your picture taken for a fee, as you can see on the right. Family, I guess, husband, wife, and daughter. I bought this in Rochester. So there you go, Michael Block. Bought this at the Rochester Postcard Show. The Rockefeller Center, of course, also includes the Radio City Music Hall. There's an exterior shot on the left by the Lumitome Company, showing some of the mural work as well, and the intricate patterning on the outsides of Art Deco buildings, including the elongated lettering for the marquee sign rather. Here's a nice Kurt Teich linen view on the right-hand side of the huge grand foyer. And here's the Radio City Music Hall. This card was very popular among tourists to New York City, done by Kurt Teich in 1936. This auditorium holds almost 6,000 people. And of course, that's the home of the famous Rockettes. Here's the NBC Studio Auditorium for television audiences. And this is truly a linen stunner. It's an Art Deco card in 3 ways. It's an exhibit in an Art Deco building. It's an Art Deco product in the form of Bakelite, and it's an Art Deco designed postcard. Just a wonderful card. If you collect linen cards and you see this come up, you really should snap it up. Of course, the Great Ocean Liners also brought Art Deco design to New York City in their public areas, such as dining rooms and smoking lounges. The Normandy burned at the dock in 1942, as people know, but fortunately all the interior furnishings had been taken off. If you go to the Pittsburgh Museum of Art, you can see some of them. This is one of the many buildings that Art Deco's design influenced, but it's much changed since the 1930s. A couple more buildings in the downtown area, the Bank of Manhattan building in the Wall Street area, and also the Irving Trust Company building at 1 Wall Street, which has been turned into a condominium now. A couple more, the Hotel New Yorker on 8th Avenue and the Paramount Broadway building in Times Square. You can see that same geometrical massing as we've seen in other cards. The Panhellenic Tower on East 49th Street was a women's club and also a residence for women working in the city. On the right, we can see the Washington Square Arch and the 1 Fifth Avenue apartment building. A couple more Art Deco buildings, the Gray Bar building, which on 43rd Street adjoins Grand Central Terminal. And on the right is the Daily News building on 42nd Street. Here's another wonderful example of how the Art Deco builders made great use of the lobbies and spent heavily on the design for them. This is the lobby in the Globe of the news building. The Globe, it weighs 4,000 pounds. You can still go in and see this lobby. I believe it's largely in the same form, even though the Daily News moved out of the building about 20 years ago. Just a wonderful card. A couple more, the General Electric building and the Chanin building in that same Midtown area. Again, you see the same kind of massing. And of course, it influenced smaller buildings as well. This is the Brass Trail restaurant on 7th Avenue. You can see the Art Deco form in the restaurant sign that hangs over the street. In the curved, the curvature of the sign, and also the elongated lettering of the sign. A couple restaurants, the China Clipper on 7th Avenue, and Churchill's, which was in the airlines terminal, another Art Deco building. Isn't there? The airlines terminal isn't there anymore. And of course, the New York World's Fair took place during this great period of Art Deco building. So quite a few of the pavilions have an Art Deco design. This is the electrical products building in the form of a kettle. Just some great streamlining. This is the Horticultural building, also designed by a firm of architects who did a number of Art Deco buildings. This is from a series by the Miller Art Company called the Blue Border series, which a lot of collectors like. Another blue border card of the Hall of Marine Transportation and one of the Art Deco style sculptures in front of it, entitled Manhattan by Sidney Waugh. I listed this on the Collectors of Linen postcard site, and I had like 40 likes for that. Never had so many. This is the last slide, but it shows a couple more of those pavilions that were influenced by Art Deco design. On the left is the Tower of Glass building for the glass industry of America, and on the right is the fountain in front of the General Electric building. So I really appreciate this opportunity that you've come today and given me a chance to show you all these wonderful Art Deco cards from a special era when the city really thrusted upwards and marvelous buildings were erected. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle, very, very much. It's just thrilling. I didn't realize there was that many Art Deco buildings there. That's just special, and probably more too. Bill Burton, do we have any questions that we'd like to share?
What we have gotten have been several people who have just expressed outright lust at these postcards. But one person has been thoughtful enough to point out that there is a society in New York that links to the snazzy website of the Art Deco Society of New York, and that's at artdeco.org.
Wow.
What do you think of that site, Kyle?
Oh, it's just a wonderful site. Those are the pros on this topic. I'm just an amateur here.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So they really have a full program that you can participate in. So, but if you explore the topic more, you'll find out that it extends all across Manhattan. It includes a lot of apartment buildings as well, particularly the ones on the west side of Central Park.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah. So so what I pulled together, through my own collecting over 20 years is cards that represent that real creative burst of energy in the late 1920s and 1930s. It wasn't really until the 1950s again that they started building big skyscrapers in New York City, and then the architectural focus had shifted to what's called the modern style, where they have these glass curtain wall buildings. Yeah.
Wonderful. Are there any other questions from anybody or want to make comments?
Yeah,
I do actually. You didn't have any postcards of the Bankers Trust.
Well, I can't have everything. You know,
No, that one's really hard because it's very hard to get back to photograph it. So there are very few that are out there. And what about the Bank of Manhattan? The Trump.
Well, there was one in there at the Bank of Manhattan.
Oh, there was one. Okay.
Yeah. I don't want everybody getting indigestion.
Hal, someone has asked about the Bakelite card. What makes that so special?
Well, to me, it's an Art Deco trifecta, winning trifecta. That it's a product that's associated with the Art Deco era. It's in a building that was designed in the Art Deco style, and then the design of the card, you know, is also in the Art Deco style. How the card is composed with the lettering and the figures, and it's just I just think it's a really wonderful card and deserves that term, linen stunner.
Oh, Kyle?
Yes.
I had a question. It's not actually to do with Art Deco, but the book behind you, Manhattan, is that the study that was done of what Manhattan looked like the day Henry Hudson came up the river?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
Okay,
that's the book.
I thought so.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Well, it reproduces this British map from the 1770s or 1780s, which has a lot of the features of Manhattan then. You know, that subsequent generations basically destroyed. You know, kind of ironed out the city.
I guess they did come out with a painting, an illustration of what it probably looked like that day. I think, what was it, 1500 something, using geology and all sorts of sources.
Yeah.
Hal,
Can I say something about? Can I say something about the Bakelite card before we get too far from that?
Sure.
Somebody asked about the attraction of it, and it's like, I don't collect New York, I don't collect Art Deco, but I do collect some linen advertising, mostly Texas, but I've never seen that Bakelite card. But for linen advertising of that period, the design, the color, everything, that thing just, you know, I'm going to go searching for that card from now on. It's
It just
killer
screams.
card.
If it was Olympic gymnastics, it gets a 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
may I say something?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I grew up in New York City, and for my birthdays, we would go to see a movie at Radio City Music Hall. And also we would go with my grandmother at Christmas time to see the Christmas shows. So that brings back some really lovely memories to me.
Thank you.
That's nice. That's nice. Let me also just say about Bakelite. It's like a plastic. It's a, they would use it a lot of times for the handles of flatware, knives and forks and spoons. You see it on keychains. You see it on salt and pepper shakers sometimes. There's a yellow color. They don't call it yellow. They call it butterscotch. And it's just a smoothness, and it's just wonderful. I have a few home front pins that grandmothers or mothers would proudly have worn during the war years, and they're made of Bakelite. And it's just a great medium that jewelry and costume jewelry was made from, and it's a whole collecting field.
There are a lot of collectors for Bakelite, a lot of collectors, and even those that don't think of themselves as postcard collectors, every one of them would jump on that card if they could afford it.
One
It does
person
come
has
up,
written to us and says
comes up
eBay is
occasionally on
going to
eBay.
crash with all of us searching for Bakelite Travelcade.
How many cards were there do you know how many cards there are in the Landmark of New York series that has that brown line across the bottom?
I think I have about 37 or 38 of them.
Okay.
I wanted
So-
to ask you what you mentioned at the beginning that there was a limit to how high the buildings were built before they had to taper up. I'm guessing that's because of allowing more sunshine to come in, number one, and number two, what was the height of the building before they started to taper?
Well, it's really, really about a 5-story podium. That's what they needed to build.
5 stories.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they began to taper in, and I'm
That's
guessing,
right.
and I'm guessing that's because it's going to allow more light to hit the street and make it less of like a dungeon, correct?
That's right. More light and air. So it was kind of a wonderful match, of the geometric aspects of Art Deco design and the various architects, some of them quite famous, who designed these buildings.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I see on eBay, somebody's got a metal sign with the same image as that Bakelite postcard. I don't see what size it is, but it says he's got more than one.
I bet it's a reproduction.
Yep, I bet it's new.
Oh, it could be, yeah.
It looks like you can choose your size on that eBay
Yeah,
things. I
must be,
saw it.
yeah.
You choose your size, so they basically reproduce it for whatever
Yeah.
size and make it just for you for whatever size you want.
Probably put it on a t-shirt too.
Probably.
The style of those buildings is also called wedding cake style.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah, it's just a wonderful time. And if you look hard enough for these cards, they are there, in terms of publishers like Max Jaffe and Lumitome and the Italian printers who did the cutaway views. Also the photographers who did custom real photo views on the top of the Rockefeller Center or the Empire State Building. They're out there. It's just you don't really get the full picture of them until you pull it all together in a presentation like mine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Most welcome.
Kyle, so much. Really. Any other questions or comments?
Nope, we're tapped out.
Okay, well, we thank
Wait. Hal Miriam Polsky's got his hand up here.
Oh,
Please.
okay.
thank you.
I have a question. Well, first of all, it's nice to meet you, Kyle.
Nice to meet. Well, we have met, Miriam. We have met once.
We have, okay. I only know you from the internet, I thought.
Okay.
But it was a great presentation, very well done, very well put together, clear,
Thank you.
and very professional. I was wondering about the Rockefeller Center white border cards, the two of them that had circular buildings. Was that the proposal for the Opera House? The circular structure?
I believe so. I don't know with 100% certainty. It doesn't make it sense that it would be for any other kind of building,
Right.
know.
I have that card and it's always puzzled me.
Yeah, I think the opera houses in some places in Europe, like Paris and La Scala in Milan, are also circular shaped.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I curious, just something that's puzzled me for a while. But anyway,
So white border cards, sometimes they're not very interesting, but they do preserve images from certain critical years.
Mhm, mhm.
So
Okay.
I wanted to say also that there's a terracotta society here in New York. It's Friends of Terracotta. It's a fabulous club.
I'd like to make a comment about the white border cards you were just talking about. I'm not sure that this is 100% accurate, but I think I have read at one point or another that the land on which the United Nations building stands today is where those buildings were intended to be built. Rockefeller donated that land to the United Nations, 1945, was it?
Yep.
Is that right, Bill?
Yes, that was part of the deal. They were at one point actually going to build the UN up further north in Westchester County, but that crashed.
In my backyard.
In your backyard?
Yeah, where Valeria is. That was also proposed as a UN site. And we have maps at the Peekskill Library showing it. But then Rockefeller donated the land.
Also, William Zeckendorf had something to do with that site.
It got serious enough that a couple of developers decided to start building housing complexes for the employees of the United Nations in a couple of areas around Westchester County. And when the idea was withdrawn, they had to be completely repurposed. A lot of developers lost their shirts. Well, two of them anyway.
It's amazing.
Okay, any other comments or? Okay, thank you, Bill, for fielding the questions for us today. Bill, as many as you know, is the head of the postcard magazine, postcardhistory.net. And if you don't know of this, please go to it. It's free. It's every week. His editor, Ray Hahn, who's a Wichita Club member, but also here today. We're lucky to have both of them today. But he's one of the editors with his wife for postcardhistory.net. Wonderful articles, just 4 a week. You wouldn't believe it. And it's free. Please go to it.
Hal, thank you for the plug. I did post a listing of missing issues that I have for Postcard Collector at the very beginning of this chat. And they run from volume 3 all the way up to volume 26.
Okay, very good, very good. Today's presentation will be posted on Facebook, and YouTube in the next few days, with thanks to Alan Milbrandt for his editing and computer skills. Our 43rd Wichita Postcard Show will be October 15, 16, 17, we hope. And thanks for coming, and our next club meeting is on October 2 at 1:45 p.m. Central Time. Please be watching for Phil McDaniel's Wichita Postcard Club newsletter for details on everything. And oh man, what great newsletters we have with such interesting and colorful features. I was part of the Wichita Postcard Club news for many years, always black and white. And when you see them in color today, you just want to scream and squeal. It's great. We are so appreciative to the club members who submit articles and say thank you, Phil, for your hours of effort to put these together and publish them, and always on time to remind us about our next club meeting. Okay, folks, thank you. That's good for today. And we appreciate all of the participation today. I think we've come to a high point as far as feedback, and that's good. That's what we want, and to continue along those lines, to have good presentations and see new things and learn, and go home with a good feeling about looking for that Bakelite card for one. Take care, and thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
So long.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.